Thank you very much for coming on to the webinar tonight. It's great to see so many clubs and so many people, and a few names I recognise that are jumping on the screen. If you'd like to see captions throughout the evening on the presentation, if you go to the bottom of the screen, you'll be able to click on the live transcript button at the bottom, and you can turn that on and off as appropriate throughout the evening. If you could drop your name into the chat, and I know quite a lot of you have already done, so please do that. Turn it to everyone so everyone can see your comments throughout the evening. Massive welcome tonight to what I think is a really important evening, which is looking at planning and looking at monetising the Rugby World Cup 2023 for clubs. With 184 days until the World Cup, it's a great opportunity to get planning, get ahead of the game, and really make it a special event for your club, and also help raise additional income into clubs. Quick introduction, I'm Steve Smith from the RFU, currently Club Business Operations Advisor there, and I've got a colleague, Alex Thompson, who you'll hear from throughout the evening, who will be running some polls throughout the session. The session is being recorded, and we'll share a copy of the session and the slides with you post the event. The recording will also go on the RFU YouTube channel, and there's a variety of information on there that you'll be able to access with this programme being on there as well. Throughout the evening, this is only as successful as how much you engage with it, so please use the chat function, please drop any questions in there. And at the end of the programme, or at the end of the evening, we'll have a question and answer session with Rob and his colleagues from International Venue Management. As I said at the start, we'll be using some polls for the session. Will be explained by Alex when we get there. And as the RFU, we're preparing our support to clubs, and the final poll this evening will give you the opportunity to identify what support and resources will be really important to you as clubs to get the most out of the Rugby World Cup 2023. So just as a starter for 10, and I'm going to record these, and these will be part of the final slides we send out. I'd just like to ask you to put in the chat what you've done for previous Rugby World Cups, whether it's an event, whether it's recruitment, whether it's income generation, maybe events, festivals, what's really worked well at your club. We've just got a minute or so to put down the best thing that you've done at your club as around the Rugby World Cup. And just as you're doing that, what I'll do is I'll do a quick introduction. So Rob Quick, who will come on and present this evening. Rob's introducing the webinar in a second. I won't take his thunder, but Rob works for and is a founder of the International Venue Management, a company that specialises in income generation, bars, hospitality, catering, and a wealth of knowledge that he'll pass on. And really pleased to be able to say that Russ Whitlock from Beaconsfield Rugby Club is here tonight, and he's going to show what they as a club have started to plan to get the most out of the Rugby World Cup. So thanks for putting your details in there of what's worked for you. And without further ado, I'll pass over to you, Rob.
Fantastic. Thank you very, very much, Steve. And a very good evening to everyone. And I think it's just brilliant and wonderful to see so many clubs joining this webinar. So thank you all for giving up your evenings to come and join us. As Steve kindly said, my name is Rob Quick, and I'm a co-founder of International Venue Management, or IVM, much easier to say. And on this webinar today, I'm joined by a number of my colleagues, and when we come to the Q&A towards the end of today's session, they may well be involved. So my co-founder and partner is Angus Houston. We have our senior venue associate, Andrew Kyle, who is leading a big project that we're doing currently for the RFU. We have Jill Howarth, who is a project manager and the engine room that sits behind IVM. And again, as Steve mentioned, we've got Russ Whitlock, who has very kindly agreed to come on to today's webinar to help bring some of the thoughts around the Rugby World Cup to life from a club perspective. So IVM is a specialist venue and event operator, and we pride ourselves on bringing events to life and venues to life. And we have a tremendous experience of working across multiple venue types and many different events, both big and small. We are, as I said, we're working with the RFU, currently working with clubs, and our brief is really simple. It's to help clubs use their assets better and drive up revenue and profit. So hence today's conversation around the Rugby World Cup is incredibly relevant. Before we dive into the meat of the webinar, and I think just understanding this wonderful game of rugby that we all love passionately, I was actually asked by some foreign students about rugby. They didn't understand it, and they asked me to do an explanation for them. And as ever, where do you start explaining from a standing start this wonderful game of rugby? So of course I went to YouTube, and I found this, and it's just a little bit of fun just to start the webinar, but it does explain rugby.
Hey, do you fancy watching the rugby?
Dunno, it seems a bit complicated.
No, it's simple. On your team, you've got forwards and backs. Then the other team have got their forwards and their backs.
Okay.
The idea is you're trying to get your forwards and backs to go forward, while the other forwards and backs are trying to make you go backwards.
Right.
Both backs and forwards can run backwards and forwards, but they can only pass backwards.
Hang on.
Any back or forward can kick the ball forward, but in order for the other forwards and backs to pick it up, that back and forward has to have been further back than the original back and forward was when he kicked it forward. If a back or forward, while running backwards and forwards, takes the ball out sideways, a forward throws the ball sideways to the forwards, who then pass it backwards back to the backs, who then try and go forward.
This is insane.
If while running back and forward, a back or forward drops the ball forward, play continues to allow the opposing back and forwards a chance to go forward. But if those back and forwards don't go forward, those back and forwards take the ball back to where the back and forward was when he dropped it forward.
What happens if they drop it backwards?
It's totally fine.
I hope there isn't an overly complicated point scoring system. Just one thing, how do the backs and forwards stop each other going backwards and forwards?
They beat the living shit out of each other.
I'm in.
Mate, do you fancy watching the rugby?
Dunno, it seems a bit complicated.
So yeah, a little bit of fun just to start, but what a great game. You might remember the one at cricket as well, with the how's that, with the when they're in they're out, and when they're out they're in. So along the same lines of that. So let's get into the Rugby World Cup. As Steve mentioned, it starts in 6 months. In fact, it starts 6 months to the day. And that might seem like a long way off, but it really isn't. And the planning really should start now. We know that the end of the season is probably a month and a half to 2 months away. Then we're all going to go away for the summer, and then when we come back for the start of next season, the Rugby World Cup is upon us. Pretty much immediately. So we're going to start just with a very quick poll, a very simple poll, and I'm just going to hand over to Alex.
That poll should be with you now. If for any reason you can't see it, then please do add your answer to the chat function. That would be good. But has your club developed any plans for the Rugby World Cup 23 activity? Is it yes, no, not yet, partially? Let's get it in so I can see answers are coming in there now. As I say, if anyone can't see it for any reason, or if at any point polls go behind your screen and you can't see them, then please do add your answer to the chat. So we've got the answers that come in there. I'll end that poll, and I'm going to share the results with you. So the majority at this stage, Rob, are saying no. So 73%, we've got 5% that yes, and some people have started to with partially with 23%. But the majority is a no at the moment, Rob. So good timing with this webinar.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks for that, Alex. And that's kind of very much as we thought. And the purpose of today really is, if we can take all those no's into part yeses and partialies, then we have done a good job. Start thinking about it. Start thinking about it right now. So some of you may already know this, and apologies if you do, but I just wanted to just let you know how the Rugby World Cup in this year in France is actually structured. So it's going to run from the 8th of September to the 28th of October. So there's 50 days, for which there are 27 match days within that 50-day period. There are 48 matches in total. That's 40 pool games. And then there's the 8 knockout games, quarterfinals, final, the bronze, playoff place, and then obviously the final itself. There are 20 teams from all over the world. So they've all now qualified. There are no hidden surprises or other clubs to come in, other countries to come in. And the great news from making the most of it for this year is that all of the games are going to be broadcast on ITV. So ITV in our country are the exclusive broadcast partner. So whether it's ITV 1, 2 or 3, all games are going to be shown live on TV, and every game will be shown live. And naturally, all the home nations are actively involved. So from all of our perspectives, it's going to be of great interest. This is a page just lifted out of the Rugby World Cup website, and I'll be breaking this down into various constituent parts in a minute. But basically, it shows that there are 4 key groups playing through to a final, and the 27 match days are also on the Rugby World Cup website that sit here in detail around the 27 actual physical match days that take place from September the 8th. So the pools and how the Rugby World Cup is broken is down into these 4 pools, and what I've done in each pool is just highlight a team in blue who are the high-profile teams, and actually New Zealand, South Africa, and Australia sit there, and in red have put our home nations. And I think this is quite important because when it comes to actually marketing or promoting the Rugby World Cup, as we get into the crux of delivering that in our clubs, that actually the marketing of the big games and the games that are featuring these are going to be the ones naturally are going to be of most interest. So hence we've highlighted them at this very, very early stage. Then what we've done is we've had a look at each of those 48 games, and we've broken it down into 3 different levels. Now, the bronze level are all those matches that are not featuring a home nations team or indeed a team of great interest. And there are 16 matches, and each single one of those is in the pools. We've then done a mid-level or a silver level, and these are the matches that are featuring the high-profile teams, but again within the pool phase, but don't feature any home nations. And there are 8 games that are featured at that level. And then a gold level, a top level, which are all the games where the home nations are featured, of which there are 16 in the pool matches, but 8 in the knockout. So all 8 knockouts are obviously key. So we're just looking for a way to help us navigate through 48 big matches and find a way of separating those so that we can find the right messages and the right matches that we want to promote. Now, I'm not going to dwell on each of these individual matches, and the presentation will be available to you all post this webinar. But so I thought I'd put it on the slides for interest, so you can see what the games are per bronze, silver, and gold level. The interesting thing to start to pick out of this, though, as you start to go through these, is that there are matches on the Wednesdays and Thursdays, but they're limited and few and far between. And nearly all the games, in fact, bar 4, all the games are on a Friday, and the vast majority are on Saturday and Sunday. So when it comes to clubhouse use and actually starting to get the most from the Rugby World Cup, actually the focus is going to be on 8 different weekends. So you can start to see how the matches pan out through there. The highlighted games in the gold are games of just great interest. It's where South Africa will play Scotland, or South Africa will play Ireland, and then there's a wonderful game that's coming up, which is Ireland Scotland on the 7th of October. So there's definitely some standout games, and again we'll come back to marketing those in a short while. So when it comes to the actual knockouts itself, all part and parcel of the gold games, then you'll see that Saturday and Sunday, the 14th and 15th October, could be a very, very big weekend at every rugby club. And then the weekend of Friday, the 20th and 21st for the semi-finals. And then, of course, the big final on the 28th of October. So bringing it all to a conclusion. So before we just go ahead to sort of thinking about how we can start to use the Rugby World Cup, just a second poll. Alex, can I hand back over to you?
That poll is with you now. So would your club just want to focus on the England matches as a priority, or a bit beyond that, focusing on the England, Scotland, Wales and Ireland, or focus as per the presentation on all the home nations and priority there? Let us know your thoughts in that poll there. I can see the responses coming in. As I say, if you can't see it, always to go back to the fact of using the chat function and put your answer into there. So majority of people have done it now. We've got 100% have completed that poll, so I'll end it there. And we have, so the majority actually are going to focus, with 63%, Rob, as per the presentation, you know, on actually the home nations and primary nations, and then sort of 28% on focusing on the home nations, England, Scotland, Wales, and Ireland, and then you can see there. But the majority are actually going to try and maximise the whole games that are there for it.
Which is fantastic. And when it comes down to your individual focus as a club, obviously that's entirely up to you. And I think that actually, if it is just an England focus, then fine. You know, if it's a home nations focus, that's what you'll start to do your communication and marketing around. The way we have done this for today is we've assumed that it was going to be the vast majority interested in home nations and other key primary nations. So that's great. So that's interesting. So let's start to bring this together. Let's start to have a look at this this promotionally. So as you've seen, we've split the matches into bronze, silver, and gold. And this is just the way that we have cut it. And you may decide as a club that you want to prioritize in other ways. So you might just want to focus on weekends or matches that take place in the evening. You might want to make more of a Friday night when they're playing on a Friday, or indeed you might need to work out what your own individual club match schedule looks like when it comes to, you know, you might have a first team fixture on a Saturday and you know you've got a minis festival on a Sunday, that actually bringing the Rugby World Cup in parallel with that and those club activities that are already going to be part of your current diary is something that you just need to factor into that part of the planning. The fixtures will be out, I guess, in the next few weeks for next season, so that will be part of that planning process. Now, the key, as I've mentioned, is that really there are 8 weekends, and from a marketing point of view, and certainly a lot of clubs that we've spoken to recently, is the marketing designation is that within your local geography or within your local town, that your club becomes the local home for the Rugby World Cup 2023. And because it's on ITV, you have no barriers to being able to show all games, or certainly the vast majority of games. So the clubhouse will be open, the bar will be open, and but depending on the level or the club or the team that's playing, you can offer catering if you're able to, or maybe be able to bring in some external catering if you additionally thought that was of value. Some clubs have 1 TV, some clubs don't have TVs, some clubs have 10 TVs, some clubs have 20 TVs. But you need to make sure that your club is well resourced for TVs again as part of that. As Steve mentioned at the very beginning, we're going to ask you at the very end of the webinar whether what sort of information you'd be looking for, or what sort of support you might be looking for. Now, at the moment, there is nothing that's going to be addressed directly for you. So really, this is something for you to take on as yourself, as your club. And when it comes to dressing your venue, that's something that's entirely up to you. If we can get some interest from sponsors or individuals to start to supply particular kits down the track, then that would be great, and that will be supplied as we go along. Now, in terms of the fixtures, so we've broken them down for you. You'll be able to use that, and you look at some of the primary fixtures that are available through the World Cup, and you can start to plan your calendar. So this is like Sky Sports and football in your local pub. So we can plan some key fixtures and use those within the communication. And in terms of the marketing and the marketing to the local geography, you've got your own media. You have your own club media that you might want to use. So your social channels and your own newsletter distribution lists, etc. But then also in the local town, what can you do? And, again, just chatting to a few clubs locally to where I am. They're talking about putting posters up in windows, trying to maybe put some posters up on roundabouts in the town, distributing flyers, engaging with sponsors, and there's maybe an opportunity to engage with a sponsor to help you sponsor your whole Rugby World Cup festival, and then of course distribution through other third parties. So people that you maybe that you have at the club, like your cleaning firms or whatever that may be, that can help distribute the message. So there's a key source here, but our view is that this is about marketing your rugby club as the local home for the Rugby World Cup 2023. Now, all of the gold matches are played over the weekends, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So you can start to see that if you break down the promotional approach in terms of the gold matches that are featuring over the weekends, then this is how it breaks down. The interesting thing to note, though, is that because these are just the gold games, but lots of the other silver and bronze matches are also going to be played over the weekend. So it's going to be a steady stream of rugby that's going to be going from 2 o'clock in the afternoon right through to the games that finish in the evening that start at 8 o'clock our time. So there's going to be plenty of rugby, plenty of things that can be shown on TV. And some gaps within the playing schedule that can be filled with some sort of activity. So what can we look at doing? So in our world, we talk about it being overlay. What can we overlay into the weekend to help bring these games and these big games to life? And there's not a finite list. It could go on forever. But bouncy castles, assault courses, bringing in family entertainment, like kids archery and that sort of thing. We've talked a lot internally about generating, getting kids to learn the haka and actually using that in competitions, or if you've got a minis festival to actually integrate a bit of fun, into that. And then bringing in guest beers, bringing in Steinlager for the New Zealand games, or Victoria Bitter for the Australia games, and a Castle for the South Africa matches. We've all probably got Guinness for the Ireland games. So bring in a special beer, and similarly, when it comes to a food menu, bringing in a mixed food proposition. So on Australia games, it could be barbecues. Barbecues will still be, hopefully the weather will still be good enough to have a barbecue. But you can start to look at just changing that balance between the focal beer or the focal food by weekend, and actually change that focus. And I have mentioned it already, and it's a conversation that I've already had with a couple of clubs, is that they're looking for either an existing sponsor to give them a bit more to take ownership of the Rugby World Cup at their club, or it's an opportunity to go and have another conversation with another sponsor. So for instance, it could be going to a local garage who might want to showcase their latest cars or latest sales proposition at the rugby club. So there's a number of ways that you can start to bring it to life, and obviously there's a mix of bar and catering that come into play here. Now I'm going to hand over to Russ. So to actually start to bring this to life, so we've had a good conversation with Russ Whitlock at Beaconsfield Rugby Club, and Beaconsfield are in that 5% who've already started to think quite heavily about the Rugby World Cup and how it's going to come to life. So without further ado, I'll hand over to you, Russ.
Thanks, Rob. Much appreciated. As Rob said, Russ, Beaconsfield Rugby Club. A little bit about me for 1 minute. Dad on the sideline for the last 15 years. Helped out being an age group manager. Worked with the Minis Festival, and now I'm looking after the commercial side of the club. So got a good little hands-on in regards to what we need to do in regards to commercialising. At least we hope we do. And I thought it'd be good for us to just showcase what we're planning to do, and it may just help inspire and give you guys some thoughts of what we're looking to do. So without further ado, if you wouldn't mind, next slide. Thank you. So as Rob said, they've done a bronze, silver and gold. We've kept it very simple. We're going to show 46 out of the 48 games, because what we've gone for is the Thursday, Friday, Saturday and Sunday. So we've decided Wednesdays aren't good for us because of the timings of what they're going to be on. But the Thursday night, Fridays and the weekends, we're going to show every single game. And we decided that because we've got an employee for the club who is who looks after the club management, and she's employed, so we pay her. So even if we have one person turn up, we're still going to make a few quid because we've got them on a fixed cost. We've also looked at the Minis Festival, and we're going to tailor it around being over on that weekend. So it can be, like Rob said, the hacker involved, and make it a bit of fun for the kids and get a real good inspiration for the RFU in regards to the Rugby World Cup. We're going to be putting posters around, getting all the local media involved in regards to being the place to show it at Beaconsfield Rugby Club, obviously social media. And the biggest part is emailing our database, getting it out there early enough, not doing it 3 or 4 days before, but starting to really think about how we get that across. And just remembering that even though there's 46 of the 48 matches, it's only 26 days. And as Rob said, the weekends take up probably 16, 18 of them. So it's actually really good in our favor. And with the time difference with France, it's actually 8 o'clock it starts on that Friday night. So that Friday, the 8th of September, it starts at 8. And we're starting literally as early as 5 o'clock in the evening, bring the kids down, have some fun and make it a fun event. Next slide, please. So what we're doing is planning. We're creating like a little committee, and only 3 or 4 people, but we're planning for food and beers and offering that, getting them from our suppliers in regards to a sale or return basis, especially the kegs, because you just don't know how big and how many people are going to turn up. So speak to suppliers like we've done, and we can get them on sale or return. So if we have a big weekend, great. If we don't sell as much as we need to, then we can return them on the Monday, no problems at all. On the opening night, we're doing a champagne reception for the France game. We're looking at extra marquees, mobile TV screens, and obviously you may need to seek council permission. So do check into that to see whether you need that or not. Certainly for sound, music, etc., etc. But that's where we're looking at in planning our diary focus. But ultimately, the objective is to use your clubhouse, get as much revenue as you can through it, through food, beers, and any other memorabilia. We've looked at also offering some memorabilia in regards to the Rugby World Cup with little small balls, which have been printed with in regards to the RFU, and possibly even selling that as an extra add-on. Next slide, please. So the other consideration we've thought of is it could actually go too busy. So we're actually doing a ticketing system. As part of our cost, we have to do it as a ticketing system anyway. So we're going to be using Eventbrite, and we're going to be offering it at a price of around £10 a ticket. So it's a low value. Get a beer included in that as well. So then that way we can control who's coming through and how many are being in regards to our clubhouse. And the reason why we need to do that is obviously we need to concentrate also on our first 15, second 15, third 15 players for our RFU games, for our league matches. And if that's going to be a busy day, we need to make sure that we're tailoring the Eventbrite around those ticket prices as well. So sometimes we might do only 50 Eventbrite tickets, and some others we might do 200, because we can hold 250 people in our clubhouse at any one time standing, or 150 people sitting down. Obviously, if we're going out into the outside part of it, then we can take on more as well. So it's worth looking at that from your perspective, getting Eventbrite or something like that, an easy ticketing system to manage your process, and it controls all your space. Next slide, please. And obviously the biggest thing for us all is the revenue. So a typical 6-8 weeks, what we would see is normally about £15,000 to £20,000 turnover. So based on GP, we normally look around 55 to 60%. That's not including our overhead with our staffing costs and gas, electric, etc. Just purely GP. We're looking normally around 50 to 60% of that 15, 20 grand. We believe that we're going to do between 40 and 70,000 pounds. So we're aiming for at least 2,000 pounds extra per night on average. That is what we're looking to bring in. So 40 to 70,000 pounds can potentially be added to your club if you get it right. And like I said, the biggest thing is having the space, getting the people out there, and most importantly, having fun with it. That's me, Russ Whitlock. Nice speaking to you all. Cheers, Rob. Back to you.
Thanks a lot, Russ. So of course that then comes down to what's really important now is we're going to put all this effort into bringing the Rugby World Cup into our rugby clubs and bringing it all to life. But actually, there's got to be a key driver here, which is what's going to happen to that bottom line. And Russ has started to look at that from a Beaconsfield perspective. Again, just talking to a number of clubs and looking what potential uplift could be on revenue on a really average basis. We think that in the weeks when maybe the bar's not already open, but you're marketing the club as being a venue for the Rugby World Cup, there could be a per day uplift of £750 on average. And then per day, in terms of the 8 consecutive weekends, which when you add in a Friday is actually 15 core days, you can actually build an average revenue of £2,500 per day. And what does that look like? Well, it's £41,000 of additional revenue, which at a 30% net profit, Russ talks about GP. If you talk about net profits, is about nearly £12,500. Now that doesn't include any other revenue that could come in from third parties and sponsorship. And actually, we think that this could actually be quite a conservative number. So looking at some of the modeling that we've done, if you really go for the weekend festival and start to use the whole day to market the Rugby World Cup, keep the bar going and keep the events going, that actually that number could actually start to be quite a significantly bigger one. So start putting some thought into it, and you start to see that the key driver and the benefit to the club is that there's a lovely profit that sits off the back of that. So not only is it going to be great as a venue, but also obviously fantastic from a revenue point of view from a club perspective. So with that in mind, I'm just going to hand back to Steve, and we're going to go dive into another poll. Sorry, before that. Now, there's lots here that we actually want to help with as well. And I just wanted to draw your attention to two different types of support that you can have access to. Now, we as IVM are running 3 surgeries, and these surgeries are literally drop-in sessions that will be on Zoom, and every club is welcome. If you want to come and let us know you're coming, then brilliant. Tuesday the 14th of March, Tuesday the 28th of March, and Wednesday the 26th of April, between 5:30 and 6:30. We're happy to stay on later and longer, if conversations are there to be had. So if you want to email surgery@internationalvm.com, then you're certainly very welcome to come to a surgery. And then as a key part of what we're helping deliver for the RFU is we have a number of workshops. And again, you'd be very welcome to register and come and join the workshops. There are 2 topics. One topic is increased income generation through events, actually how you can use events through your club to drive revenue and drive usage. And there's also an improve your bar and catering services, very fundamentally driven at how you can increase your GP through your bar and your food offering. So there's 2 more bar and catering services webinars, and we have 3 income generation webinars that run right through to the middle of May. Now, as a key part of that is these are all on Zoom. The detail of how to register for these workshops is going to be sent to you with this presentation in a pack, which will come to you soon after today. So there is some other opportunities for you to maybe even have some ideas around the Rugby World Cup. Come and share them with us, and we'll hopefully be able to maybe add a little bit of value to that too. So please use those if you can. So, Steve.
Right, okay, for this poll, what we want to do is give you the opportunity to have your say in what would be beneficial to you as clubs, and we'll take this back into the RFU internally. So there's 5 or 6 areas within the poll that we'd like you to go for. Please try and identify the most important ones to you as a club, and there's an opportunity to put other information at the bottom, and I've already taken down the league information, so please feel free to fill that in now.
That poll is with you now. You can click on more than one, you can prioritize, but please put in, as you can see there, you don't have to click the other, but we're open to ideas as well. So there's a total open one to put in your feedback, as you've done already around the league stuff, into the chat function. So I can see a lot of people are already completing it. I'm going to give it a few more seconds just so enable people to complete that. But yes, again, add in any extras as Mark has done, and Dan into the chat, and keep them coming as well. We're going to go in and stuff. The next thing is we are going to start to go into a Q&A, so please do start adding your questions to the chat there. So I'm just going to finish that poll now. I'll share the results with you. So there's a mixture across there, as we can imagine, that we'll take away, but the big ones coming out is actually the digital resources, templates, marketing plans, ones sort of followed by those event ideas and how-to guides, and a mixture across the piece there. So I'll stop sharing that and pass you back to Steve.
Okay, so while we've got Rob and his team on here, really keen to keep getting your thoughts and things around other stuff that will help you as clubs, but more importantly, questions for Rob and the team in the chat. And certainly one of the big things that I've learned over the years running clubs and being involved in clubs is that planning is really key. And then once we've done the planning, it's very much for me around the marketing. So I've got a question to start for you, Rob. From a marketing point of view, how would you aim to reach further than your current membership? And importantly, when would you start to promote, as a second follow-up question?
So let me start with the second part of that first. So I spoke to ITV about when they're going to start pre-promoting the Rugby World Cup, and that's where the excitement's going to start to build. So they're going to do some early trails from the start of August, and then they're going to start to really build from the start of the third week of August. So the excitement is going to start building from the start of August. Now, that's quite an early time to go. So I say that clubs should start marketing actively from the middle of August. Bearing in mind the first game is a Friday on the 8th of September. So the season will start. You probably have your first weekend. Maybe the first weekend is that weekend for some clubs. Maybe it's the weekend before for others. But literally it is right at the start of the season. In terms of marketing, again, talking to clubs and saying how would you go and do this, because you want to embrace your membership and you want to bring all your current members on board, but also there's an opportunity to start to bring people in from the town and start to bring new guests into the rugby club. So this is the idea around posters, some local engagement. I think there's a big difference between using digital media that you use as a club, because that generally is consumed by your own members or people who are closely associated with your members. But actually more analog media, posters and flyers and putting information up in town notice boards actually is the bit that's going to engage the local community. And I think the message is, this is the place to watch the Rugby World Cup. Let's not let a local bar take all the revenue. Let's let the club take the revenue. And actually, let's make this the home for the Rugby World Cup. The home is your rugby club. So I'd use analog media to start to drive interest outside of the club. Obviously, put the information on the website and where the match is and who's playing who, when, and whatever. But I would drive the information on an analog basis in town.
Okay, are there any other questions, please, for the guys? Okay, there's a lot of comments that we've had through, so thanks very much for all of the comments and things like the digital templates and stuff like that. We'll take back internally and come back to you all. We will drop, obviously, the PowerPoint presentation and a copy of this through to you following the webinar this evening. And it just remains for me to thank you all for attending, and I hope you found the session good. We've got some questions coming through, I think, Rob, now.
Brilliant.
Will ITV be doing templates we can tailor for our club? I think, to be honest, Chris, at this point, I'm not sure. We will take that back internally and come back to you from an RFU point of view. But from most of the breweries, from experience, a lot of the brewers have their posters that they'll send out and the templates. But I'm not sure if ITV have done those previously.
I don't think they have. Well, what I can guarantee is that the spend that ITV are putting behind the Rugby World Cup is going to be greater than any other broadcast event that they have this year. So in any normal year, their biggest event would be I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. They're going to be outspending that dramatically to bring this to life. So they're going to put a lot of effort into the Rugby World Cup. So that's great. It's going to help. And just by advertising the fact it's on terrestrial TV is also going to be good news too.
One for you, Angus, I think, just around the planning approach from having run big events and stuff. How do you engage that audience? What's the best top tips from yourself?
So thanks, Steve. I think if I can put this into the context of what Rob was talking about in terms of when you go to market and when it's all going to hit the mainstream media channels, particularly ITV. So we're all rugby people. We're all in the zone this year because we're right in the middle of the Six Nations. That will conclude. And if you think of seasonality, the seasons at all the clubs will conclude and then it goes quiet. So we know the way the calendar year works. There's another piece of work we're doing, which is part of this project, which is optimizing the use of your club houses. And we talk in particular about a gap analysis, which is when do you do what? So when do you plan what? Because the seasons come and go. It's largely volunteer resources around the thinking of this. So instead of losing all the good stuff that we're chatting about tonight, it's good to take away. We're in March now and say, right, well, what's the sequence? If the marketing goes forward in August, you've got to have a plan before the summer. So you've got to have a plan probably by the end of the season before things disappear. You can't suddenly reappear a few weeks before the Rugby World Cup. So what are we going to do? So our advice would be start at the beginning and work a stage process. So when the marketing starts, you're ready with what you're going to do. So you can look into the different things, whether it's food and drink, whether it's finding partnerships, using bits of technology and big screens. So that first poll, which is how much planning has been done, is still very small. So if nothing else comes of just energizing some dialogue from tonight, get a plan. It doesn't have to be complicated because everyone's busy, but I would also suggest that we're here and we're shamelessly, we're putting our hands up. You've seen the workshops. The workshops are open. We're here as a resource the RFU are providing, so we can help you, and we'll be delighted to do that. If you want to tailor things directly to us around that, we have third parties that we can introduce you to, whether it's Russ and his technology or different infrastructures, and it's all there for you to just come and ask about. But go back to the simple process. If you look at many club websites, right up there, there's nothing on there because that's not what your rugby club. So rugby is your core sport. So get a plan, track it back, and make a start. And then if we can help you, we are here for the next couple of months as part of the RFU's resources and completely open and available to, in various ways to give you any assistance that we can.
100%.
I think I'll just pick up on your point, Tim, on will the RFU be supplying, offering promotional packages for clubs? I think, again, I'd probably turn this back to clubs to look at what you can do now in the short term, and we'll obviously take all of the comments back internally. But I think for me, it's looking at what you want to do and achieve. And I know when I ran Nottingham Rugby, we did things like we got loads of old memorabilia and we put it all around the walls, just hung up old shirts and all sorts of stuff. And it made it feel like the Rugby World Cup venue. So there's a lot of things I think you can potentially look at and do internally initially that will help. And then also looking at potentially, you know, your brewers and people who are your reps, ask them the questions. I know one of the breweries that I was associated with, they always used to come up with packs and bunting and all sorts of other stuff again to make the place look good. So ask the local reps that you're working with, and then obviously we'll come out with what we can do closer to the time. Chris Packer, your one around a specimen sort of giant chart. I've got an Excel Word document that I used previously for sharing and planning, and I've put all the World Cup dates in there. So I'll add that into the send out that we send afterwards, and hopefully that will be of use to you as well. Ivan, I'm not sure who owns Fuller's. But again, I'll have a look into that. I'm assuming that's
Asahi doing Fuller's.
Okay, we'll look into that and have a chat, Rob, afterwards on that one.
Sure.
Okay, I think we've probably run out of questions and comments on there, but thank you very much for everyone's attendance and also your contributions tonight. And we've had loads and loads of really good ideas in there, and we'll try and consolidate them all and get the information out to you in the next few days. I hope you all found the session really useful. Massive thanks to Rob and his team for all of their work that they've done so far, but also to Russ for coming on from a club point of view. And obviously they've got ahead of the curve and ahead of the game, but hopefully we're all on that same trajectory now. And then for me, so I said earlier, it's all about planning, and with it being 184 days to start the World Cup, I think you guys are all in a great position to start planning, take it forward. And I think, you know, we all look forward to seeing the massive successes at clubs, be it huge festivals, the bars full. And I think you've got to keep telling that story about how good your club is and what you're doing for everybody. So thank you very much for attending tonight, and look forward to being in touch with you soon.
Thank you all. Appreciate it. Thank you.